The United States military spent 60 years answering one question. Which guns does a single person need to survive? They published the answer. It is sitting in unclassified doctrine right now. Then federal law made most of it illegal to own. The military equips a soldier with that optimal survival loadout for roughly $2,000. A civilian, attempting the closest legal version, spends $5,000 to $10,000 and still ends up with an inferior configuration. Missing capabilities? The military calls essential. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what the military selected, why they selected it, what federal law prevents you from replicating, and your best legal alternatives. But before we show you what they chose and why, understand something. Almost every configuration in that answer is restricted or prohibited under federal law. Welcome. If you're new here, this channel does one thing differently. We read the actual doctrine, we pull the actual statutes, we cite the actual congressional record. No brand deals, no influencer preferences, no opinions dressed up as expertise. The military publishes field manuals, training circulars, and weapons doctrine running hundreds of pages each. We read them, so you do not have to wade through 500 pages of military jargon. That is what this channel is. If that sounds like something worth having in your feed, subscribe now. You will understand why in about 15 minutes. Now, the military's answer starts with one principle that overrides everything else. And it is not the principle you think. Before the military names a single weapon, before they discuss accuracy, stopping power, barrel length, or optics, they answer one question first. Can you find ammunition for it when supply chains collapse? That is it. That is the foundation. Not brand loyalty, not ballistic performance at 1,000 yards. Ammunition commonality. The principle is documented in Field Manual 3-21.8, Infantry Rifle Platoon and Squad, and its successor, Army Techniques Publication 3-21.8. The Marine Corps publishes it independently in Marine Corps Warfighting Publication 3-01. 3 separate publications, same answer. Here is why. Go back to 1964. The United States adopts the M16 rifle. One of the reasons it replaces the M14 is ammunition weight. A soldier carries more rounds of 5.56 by 45 millimeter than 7.62 by 51 millimeter for the same load. More rounds means longer engagements. Longer engagements mean survival. But the deeper logic is interoperability. NATO formalizes the standardization agreement, known as STANAG, through the 1980s. 30-plus nations agree on common calibers. 5.56 by 45 millimeter for the rifle. 7.6, 2 by 51 millimeter for the medium machine gun and designated marksman role. 9 by 19 millimeter for the sidearm. 3 calibers. That is it. Now, translate that to a collapse scenario. You're not resupplied by a military logistics chain. You scavenge, you barter, you find what others left behind. If your rifle fires a proprietary cartridge, you are out of luck. If it fires the single most common rifle cartridge in the Western world, your odds change dramatically. The doctrine does not care about your favorite caliber. It does not care about the forum debates. It cares about what you can find when nothing works anymore. The M16 becomes the M16A2. The M16A2 becomes the M4 carbine. The M4 becomes the M4A1. 60 years of iterative refinement. Specific dates matter here. 1964, original adoption. 1980s, 2 improvements. The M4 shortens the barrel for close quarters. The M4A1 restores full auto capability. Each iteration refines. None of them changes the caliber. None of them abandons the platform. The doctrine is not guessing. It is updating. So what specific weapon does 60 years of doctrine land on? This video covers the surface of what the military published. The full doctrine breakdown goes deeper than any single video can. We built something called the Vault for exactly that purpose. Inside, you will find complete spare parts lists, cross-reference to the technical manuals, cleaning schedules organized by environment, desert, jungle, temperate, and Arctic, direct links to publicly available doctrine PDFs that most people do not know exist, ammunition storage protocols with temperature and humidity specifications, training progression references adapted from military qualification standards. No filler, no brand deals. Just the documentation the military already wrote, organized so a civilian can actually use it. The link is in the description. But you do not need the Vault to understand what the military chose and why the ATF made most of it illegal. That is next. The current standard United States military rifle is the M4A1, 14.5-inch barrel. Select fire, meaning the operator chooses between semi-automatic and fully automatic. Suppressor ready from the factory, feeds from STANAG magazines, weighs roughly 6.5 pounds empty, effective to 500 meters with optics. This is what 60 years of combat refinement produced. Now here is what happens when a civilian tries to own one. First, the barrel, 14.5 inches. Under federal law, a rifle barrel shorter than 16 inches classifies the weapon as a short-barreled rifle. That falls under the National Firearms Act, Title 26, United States Code, Chapter 53. You must register it, pay a $200 tax stamp, and wait months for ATF approval. $200 does not sound like much today, but the NFA was written in 1934. Adjusted for inflation, that $200 was roughly $4,400. The tax was designed to be prohibitive. It worked. Second, the select fire capability, full auto. The firearm owners. Protection Act of 1986 includes the Hughes Amendment, codified at Title 18, United States Code, Section 922, subsection O. No new machine guns may be manufactured for civilian sale after May 19, 1986. If you want a transferable pre-86 M16 lower receiver, the market price is $30,000 to $50,000 for one part. And the Hughes Amendment has its own history. The vote was a voice vote. Representative Charles Rangel presided. The congressional record shows the vote was disputed on the floor. There is video. Watch it yourself. Reasonable people disagree on whether the ayes actually had it, but it passed into law. And that single procedural moment closed the registry forever. Third, the suppressor. Standard military issue on the M4A1. Under the NFA, a suppressor requires the same process. $200 tax, months of waiting. A TF form. 4. 42 of 50 states allow civilian ownership. 8 do not. Violating the NFA carries a maximum penalty of 10 years imprisonment and a $250,000 fine. Now the sidearm, the M17 and M18, adopted in 2017. Based on the SIG Sauer P320 platform, 9 by 19 millimeter, 17-round magazine in the full-size configuration, 15 rounds in the compact. Here is the one piece of good news in this entire video. The civilian SIG P320 is functionally identical. No NFA restrictions, no special tax, no waiting period beyond your state's standard requirements. You can buy the military sidearm essentially unchanged at a gun store today. One component out of the entire loadout. The military did not choose these configurations for convenience. They chose them because the alternative gets people killed, and they have the medical data to prove it. The Department of Veterans Affairs publishes disability compensation statistics. The single most common service-connected disability in the entire VA system is tinnitus. The second most common is hearing loss. Combined, approximately 2.7 million veterans receive compensation for hearing-related conditions. 2.7 million. Suppressors do not make guns silent. Hollywood lied to you. An unsuppressed rifle generates approximately 165 decibels. A suppressed rifle generates approximately 130 to 140 decibels. That is still louder than a jackhammer. But it is the difference between permanent hearing damage and manageable exposure. It is the difference between a soldier who can communicate with their team and one who cannot hear commands. Special Operations Command understood this early. SOCOM accelerated suppressor adoption starting around 2015. The outcomes are published: reduced hearing injuries, improved team communication, better shot placement because the shooter is not flinching from their own muzzle blast. The military calls suppressors essential equipment. The NFA calls them restricted items. Same object. Two classifications. Now consider the commercial market that exists in the gap. The American Suppressor Association tracks registration data. Approximately 4.7 million suppressors are currently registered in the United States. The market for NFA compliance is enormous, but it gets more interesting. Because the Hughes Amendment bans new machine guns and the NFA restricts short barrels and suppressors, an entire workaround industry exists. Binary triggers that fire on both the pull and release of the trigger. About $300. Pistol braces that approximated a stock without technically being one. About $200. These products exist because the regulatory gap created artificial demand. The industry sells solutions to problems created by the restrictions. Ask yourself a question the Doctrine does not answer. Does the firearms accessories industry actually want these restrictions repealed? Or does the multi-billion-dollar compliance and workaround market depend on them existing? The companies that publicly lobby against restrictions privately profit from them. Every NFA item requires a tax stamp. Every workaround product replaces a feature that would cost less without the restriction. The financial incentive runs both directions. If you're still watching, you already understand military weapons doctrine better than most people who own firearms. That is not flattery. It is the consequence of reading source material instead of watching reviews. Subscribe now. We will wait now. What we do not tell you matters as much as what we do. Here is what this video cannot solve. The semi-automatic limitation is real. Without select fire, you cannot deliver suppressive fire. That changes your tactical options fundamentally. The military trains suppressive fire as a core team function. A semi-auto rifle does not replicate it. You're building a different capability, not a lesser version of the same one. Accept that distinction. Training matters more than hardware. The military backs this equipment with thousands of hours of marksmanship, movement, communication, and medical training. The rifle is one variable. The operator is the larger one. Buying the loadout without investing in training is incomplete. Logistics outweigh the specific firearm. Ammunition, water, food, medical supplies, hoe and shelter all rank above which brand of rifle you carry. The doctrine addresses this explicitly. The weapon is part of a system. It is not the system. The AR-15 and M4 platform requires regular maintenance. Bolt carrier groups wear out, firing pins break, extractor springs lose tension. If you do not stock spares and know how to install them, the platform's advantages become liabilities. And here is the one that should concern you most. Legal exposure. A TF reclassification authority means that a configuration legal today may be a felony tomorrow. In January of 2023, the ATF reclassified pistol braces. Millions of owners faced a choice: register, remove, or become felons. The regulatory ground shifts without legislative action. That is not speculation. It already happened. With all of that said, here is exactly what you can legally build right now that comes closest to what the military carries. Primary rifle, AR-15 platform, semi-automatic, 16-inch barrel to stay above the NFA short barrel threshold without a tax stamp, chambered in 5.56 by 45 millimeter NATO, accepts standard STANAG 30-round magazines. Note your state's capacity restrictions. Add a suppressor. This requires the NFA Form 4, $200 tax stamp, and a wait of several months. Add a red dot sight or low-power variable optic. Add a weapon-mounted light. Total for the primary rifle configured: approximately $2,000 to $4,000 depending on component quality. Sidearm, SIG Sauer P320. Commercially identical to the M17 and M18, chambered in 9 by 19 millimeter. 17-round magazine for the full size, 15 rounds for the compact. Approximate cost, $500 to $700. Optional precision rifle, chambered in 7.6, 2 by 51 millimeter. Bolt action or semi-automatic. This fills the designated marksman role from the Doctrine. Approximate cost, $800 to $2,000. Ammunition standardization, stock exactly 3 calibers: 5.56 by 45 millimeter, 7.6, 2 by 51 millimeter, 9 by 19 millimeter. Nothing exotic, nothing proprietary. The Doctrine is clear on this. Magazine standard, 30-round STANAG for the rifle, 17-round for the P320 full size. Stock multiples of each. Configuration priority order. Rifle first, sidearm second, suppressor third, optics fourth, light fifth. This is not opinion. This is the order in which each component contributes to survivability based on the Doctrine's own logic. Spare parts you need on hand. 1 extra bolt carrier group, firing pins, extractor springs. These are the failure points the technical manuals identify. Total approximate cost for the complete legal civilian equivalent, $5,000 to $10,000. The military equips a soldier with this superior configuration, the one with the shorter barrel, the select fire capability, and the integrated suppressor for approximately $2,000. You pay more, you get less. The difference is regulatory, not technological. Let us bring this full circle. The United States military spent 60 years, trillions of dollars, and uncountable lives refining the answer to a single question. What does one person need to survive a gunfight? The answer is publicly available. Field Manual 3-21.8, Army Techniques. Publication 3-21.8, Marine Corps Warfighting. Publication 3-01, unclassified, free, online right now. The regulatory framework, the NFA, the Hughes Amendment, ATF Reclassification Authority, prevents civilians from building what the Doctrine specifies. The closest legal approximation costs more and delivers less. And the next generation is already proving the Doctrine is permanent. The next generation squad weapon program, the XM7, reinforces every principle: short barrel, select fire, suppressor integrated, modular. The platform changes. The Doctrine does not. The information exists. You now have it. What you build with it is your decision. Next week, we open the medical side. What the military carries to stop bleeding and what the FDA says you do not need. Subscribe so you do not miss it.